Hi, I'm Brian. Welcome to our Ben Starav 5 trip. This was a group walk organised by Charlotte and myself to take up a group of people to do Ben Starav and its neighbouring 4 Munros, with a spot of wild camping up on the Munros as well. If you're planning on doing these Munros, I'd definitely stick around, as you're going to get a good view of the ridge which is after Ben Starav itself. After you leave the car park and walk across the bridge, it's along a decent track, crossing the stream, and then you follow the stream up until you find the track that takes you up towards Ben Starav itself. It can be a little bit steep at points and the path isn't always great, but it's not anything major. As you can see, we've all got big rucksacks on, we're camping on the hill, and we managed it just fine. Initially it is grassy slopes with stony and rocky paths as you go up, but as you get higher the terrain will change to be much more rocky and bouldery, and that's just letting you know that you're getting much closer to the summit itself. The views we got that day were amazing. Couldn't have got better weather if we tried. It wasn't overly hot, which would not have been fun with the amount of equipment people were carrying. Just on kit and equipment, one of the big things that slowed us down that day was the amount of kit that people had took, and unfortunately a lot of them hadn't had wild camping experience, so they weren't sure exactly what to take. This unfortunately really slowed us down, and I'd originally planned to do 3 Munros on day 1, but unfortunately we only managed to have time to do 2 Munros on day 1. This was no major problem as I'd factored that into my plan anyway. As you can see, the routes get much more bouldery and rocky. We're probably about the halfway point up Ben Starav. If you are taking your dog, just beware there's not much water on the mountain itself. There is pockets of water scattered about in little rock pools and stuff, but there's no streams or anything coming off the hill itself. Ben Starav itself is a good climb. Once you get to this point it is getting much more bouldery. No major problems for us, we just kind of climbed over them and got past them. Poppy had no problem. Cody, because he's a bigger dog and he was also carrying his food because of the wild camping, did make it a little bit more difficult for him, but he had no major issues actually getting to the summit itself. He was just a bit slower. Unfortunately for the members of the group which had overpacked, did get slowed down by this section because of the climbing over the boulders and rocks on their way to the summit. If you are planning to wild camp, really think about the kit and equipment you're going to take. Try and be as light as you can. There's lots of good videos out there on YouTube that will point you in the right direction, and I will link some of them in the description. Here we are at the top of Ben Starav and rewarded with an amazing view. As the group was pretty strung out, we did stay on the summit for quite a while, wait for everyone to catch up and then get all the photos, but there's also a really nice lunch spot just behind the summit as well if you want to have your lunch at the top. Time to head to our second Munro of the day, Ben Starav. To get to your next Munro, you have to traverse this ridge that you can see just in front. There is a bypass path off to the right if you don't want to do it, however it is a lot of fun to get over it, depending on the weather that is. As you can see, it can be quite narrow at times. For Little Poppy, there was no major issue because Cody had his harness with pouches on it carrying his food. He wasn't as graceful as she was. There's a few times I had to help him over the rocks as we went along, as you'll see. Also, bear in mind that most of us have got very large rucksacks on. We still managed to traverse the ridge itself. Cody got stuck at this point and really couldn't get past, and he knew it, so he just waited for me to come along and help him. If we were only just up for the day, we were only just carrying our own little walking kit, I don't think Cody would have had as big a problem as he did this day, just because of the kit that he was also carrying along with us. Just made it a bit more difficult for him to jump over the rocks. Lucky that Cody knows his limits and doesn't try and do anything stupid when he's faced with something that he just can't get past. He'd rather just wait for me to come and help him. As enjoyable as the ridge was, I wouldn't fancy doing it in the wet, as these rocks can be really slippy. I have seen it being traversed in the snow, but the individuals have ice axes and crampons, so it can be done as long as you've got the equipment and you're experienced. Also about to see one of the very rare occasions where Charlotte actually pets Cody. Caught on camera. As you can see, Cody sometimes needs help lifted over the rocks or just directed around them, but most of the time he was absolutely fine just following Charlotte at the head of the pack. The descent after the ridge can be a little bit tricky, so just take your times, and if you do have walking poles, I definitely have them out to help stabilise you, as some of the paths are quite narrow. The rocks here had no effect over Cody and Poppy's pads, they were absolutely fine, and that was us being up for 2 days on the hills as well. There's Glass Vein Vore just in front of the camera. That was going to be our third Munro of the day, but unfortunately we had to do it on our second day. For heading to the second Munro, because we were coming back on ourselves, we decided to ditch all of our heavy rucksacks and hide them behind some rocks and head for the summit with just minimum kit, which made it a lot easier for us. The initial walk towards Munro is a little bit slow because it's some steep rocky sides, but once you get into the Belak in the middle, it gets much better and there's a clear defined track that takes you up. It can be a bit rocky and bouldery at times, especially the further you go up, but nothing like Ben Starav itself. There's also plenty of water at this section for your dog, which is always good, especially coming off Ben Starav, as there's no water up there at all. Despite it being a tough day for most, the views more than made up for it, and the weather was just spectacular. And here we are, our second Munro of the day, which unfortunately ended up being the last. As I said, the group was really tired, so it was time to find an alternate campsite and bed down for the night. After everyone got their fill of photos on the summit, that is. Everyone in the group worked really hard, despite most of them never doing well camping before and had never carried this amount of kit. So big well done to the group. After setting up our campsite, myself and Charlotte enjoyed a nice hamburger and a cup of tea. Who says you can't have decent food while camping up the Munros? I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share and subscribe, and leave a comment, and we shall see you for part 2 of our Ben Starav 5 trip.